So I remember this story
Yeah.
of a 13-year-old boy. He'd come
Okay.
all the way from West Bengal. Damn
Yeah.
sweet little guy. So he spoke to me and said, I've been having some double vision. Bengalis don't say V, na? They say B instead of V. He says, I was sitting in class one day and then suddenly the letters were appearing blurred and
Yeah.
two of each, and I knew that something was wrong. And we went to a neurosurgeon over there, and they said there's a big brain tumor. So we went ahead and did his operation. After surgery, he woke up really well and he said he's feeling great. His vision improved immediately after surgery. His double vision had gone, and he was very happy. And then what happened? One fine day, his sodium level plummeted to rock bottom, and then within a short period of time it went up really high. He developed a problem in the brain because of that dysregulation.
Yeah.
He developed some damage to his brainstem and to some part of the brain called the basal ganglia, and he went into a coma. And then out of the blue, I get a call from his brother saying that
Hello and welcome to a new episode of Brain Pickings with Dr. Mazda Turel. Today we are having a conversation about how one young patient has changed the way a doctor looks at healing, resilience, and the quiet magic that lives inside medicine. We will ask Dr. Turel to share stories with us of his time as a young resident in Vellore when he was there, and he would really spend hours and hours and nights and days as a young resident. Share with us some stories that really touched your heart.
so I trained in Christian Medical College in Vellore, which is in Tamil Nadu, which is considered to be the birthplace of neurosurgery in India.
Right.
In 1949, a gentleman by the name of Dr. Jacob Chandy started the first formal department of neurosurgery. Neurosurgery used to be performed under the bigger umbrella of general surgery. But he started neurosurgery in India, and his contributions require a separate podcast. But as a resident doctor in training, life used to be really grueling. We used to barely sleep every alternate day.
Yeah.
Just a couple of hours of sleep. We used to have about 40-50 patients in a unit at any given point in time, with 3-4 admissions every single day, and we had to work up cases, present them, do emergency call duty, go to the operation theatre, all of those things. And it was chaos and turmoil, but a lot of fun. We were a good team, we were a good group of residents, we enjoyed what we did, we stayed awake at odd hours. Neurosurgery is about so much of sacrifice. You sacrifice a whole lot of external pleasure
Right.
to be able to look after these patients, and in the bargain they are teaching you every single day what it means to live with certain conditions. So I remember this story
Yeah.
of a 13-year-old boy. He had come
Okay.
all the way from West Bengal. Damn
Yeah.
sweet little guy. He had a little big curly mop of hair,
Yeah.
and he used to wear thick rimmed glasses, almost looking like a baby professor. And when I went to him, his mother was with him,
Huh.
and I asked him, "Kemon ache?" A lot of our patients used to come from East India, and I learned a little bit of Bengali. So he spoke to me and said, I've been having some double vision. Bengalis don't say V, na? They say B instead of V. So he's telling me, as if he's in his late 60s, he was talking to me.
Acha.
I'm having double vision.
Okay.
So I said, okay, tell me more. He says, I was sitting in class one day and then suddenly the letters were appearing
blurred.
and
Yeah.
two of each, and I knew that something was wrong. And he had
Yeah.
this,
Sense of clarity.
he, as if he was like a reincarnated old soul. He spoke to me like he had some ancient wisdom
Yeah.
embedded within his mind.
Hmm.
And we went to a neurosurgeon over there, and they said there is a big brain tumor.
Okay.
It's 13 years old.
Oh.
And then he's telling me it's called a craniopharyngioma. It's a tumor that's so hard to pronounce.
Right.
It's much harder to
Equally
remove.
harder to remove, I'm sure. Yeah, that's what.
So, and it's a tumor that arises from the pituitary stalk in the center of the brain, and it presses against the optic nerve, and it lines the hypothalamus, which is the seat
Okay.
of consciousness. It regulates every single function in the body, more or less.
Okay.
So they said over there that it's too risky to operate, and you only go to Belor. There are the best neurosurgeons in the country. All these big places, institutes, 4-5 of them in the country have reputation. So a large belt of East India drains into our institute.
Right.
So I examined him, did all the detailed findings, and then we had planned for his operation 4-5 days later. And it was great because every day I used to go and see him. And after all my work used to be over, I used to sit next to him. I used to sit on the computer and he used to come and sit next to me. And I used to type discharge summaries, and he used to come and tell me some trivia he used to give me. He would tell me, "Oh, you are Zoroastrian. Did you know that Zoroastrianism is the oldest monotheistic religion in the world? Did you know this? Did you know that? Did you know?" He used to come and give me all sorts of. He used to quote Shakespeare.
Wow.
He was 13. He used to come and write every single day. He would write a poem for me.
Wow.
Just like 4-5
Terrific.
lines, but rhyming words, and it was beautiful.
Yeah.
And he would sit with me. He would sit, and I said, okay, now since you're awake at this time, and it used to be 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, when once I'd finished all my emergency
he would come
work,
down and sit with
he
you.
would come and sit. So I used to
Wow.
we didn't have everything wasn't computerized then. Some part of it
Right.
was. This
Yeah.
is about what, 2008 or something, 8 or
Right.
9 or
Okay.
10.
Yeah.
And I used to make him write down investigations for other patients. So he used to fill up forms to submit to the sister. He used to write something. I used to dictate some notes to him. He used to write them down
Wow.
in the chart.
You all formed a great bond
We
right there.
were a great team. He made my work, took away half my burden. So, and 2-3 days later, he knew exactly what
What
needs
to
to be
do.
done. So before I used to come, he said, listen, I've done
Okay.
this. I've checked on. He's 13. I've checked on this fellow. I've
Right.
checked on that fellow.
Yeah.
Everything's okay.
Mhm.
And he knew what neurosurgery entailed. So couple of days later, and I used to ask me what is this show on the MRI. So I explained his whole MRI to him. I showed him where the optic nerves are, where the hypothalamus is, and I discussed other patients' MRIs with him, and he used to tell me what this shows, where's this patient's tumor, where's.
Quite a companionship.
So he was so interested.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. I used to look forward to finishing
being
my
with
day
him
quickly so that
then.
we could hang
Yeah.
for and then on a few occasions I fell asleep on the computer. He used to fall asleep next to me like that, and then suddenly in the middle of the night we used to wake up together.
Wow.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
So we went ahead and did his operation. I
Huh.
was there for I didn't operate. I was a
Okay.
resident doctor.
You
My
were an assistant at that
my
time.
boss operated,
Yeah.
and I assisted him. And
Yeah.
these tumors have this golden molten fluid within them, and it's the surgery is almost like unearthing diamonds from within that field of molten lava. And then we finally separated the tumor beautifully from the
Right.
optic nerve, from the carotid artery, and then
Right.
finally from the hypothalamus to which it's attached. And sometimes
It was deep
these-
inside.
it was
meaning
deep.
it has
It's
to
almost smack in
yeah.
the center of the brain.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
So these patients, I was just hoping that he wakes up after surgery because it
Yeah.
was an aggressive operation.
Hmm. How long did
And
it last?
about 5
Was it-
6 hours.
Okay.
And after surgery, he woke up really well and he said he's feeling great. His vision improved immediately after surgery. His double vision had gone. And he was very happy. We kept him in the ICU. Usually, what happens is that sometimes, because of an aggressive operation like this, these patients have changes in their hormonal levels because everything is controlled over there. They have changes in sodium levels that go up and down.
Hmm.
They may pour large amounts of urine and all those things. So that's why we keep these patients in ICU for a few days.
Hmm.
And then what happened one fine day, his sodium level plummeted to rock bottom, and then within a short period of time it went up really high. So it had a yo-yo effect of about 50 points.
Oh.
And he developed a problem in the brain because of that. Because
Oh.
of that dysregulation,
Yeah.
he developed some damage to his brainstem and to some part of the brain called the basal ganglia. And he went into a coma.
So at this juncture, as a young resident, you're there, and after the surgery, this little boy with whom you have developed such a bond goes into coma again. Did you have were you burdened with your own sense of guilt, and were you really trying hard to understand what was happening?
It wasn't a
Because
sense of guilt because this wasn't really anyone's doing
right,
in particular. It's just
right,
that the hormonal fluctuation was so intense
yeah,
that sometimes it can be difficult to regulate because the body just decides to move from first gear to fifth gear immediately, and there's an autonomic imbalance that takes place.
right,
So more than guilt, it was a deep concern and a
yeah,
worry
yeah.
as to we've done such a fabulous
Job,
operation,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and now this guy is in this situation. And
For how long was he in coma?
we got an MRI done. It showed some damage to certain deep structures of the brain,
Yeah,
indicative of this particular condition. So
yeah.
he was unconscious for several weeks,
Oh
and
dear.
every day we used to go to ICU 3-4 times a day,
Hmm.
checking on him to see if
Hmm.
any response. Finally, the sodium levels regularized, but still he didn't seem to wake up. His mother was by his side 24/7, and when couple of weeks later he started regaining consciousness,
Yeah. Okay.
and everyone was there by his side. But when he woke up,
Hmm.
while he was partly aware of stuff around him, he was shaking. He developed these tremors because of damage to areas of the brain that are responsible of controlling tremors. So he started having these kind of shaking up. He was almost like one of those fidget dolls that you see,
Yeah.
spring dolls that you see there. He was like that kind of, like imagine a young boy with severe Parkinson's disease, that kind of thing, where his head is bobbing, his hand is shaking, is so difficult even to
Tragic.
like eat
Yeah.
food.
Oh God.
And then 3 months later, we were able to get him out of ICU. And then he did a lot of intensive physiotherapy. And after that, he was like part of the whole family of the team. Everybody knew
The
him,
hospital, yeah,
and
they
everybody was taking care of him. And
Yeah.
3 months later, he managed to walk with the help of a walker. He was still like shaking, and we had to give him a lot of hormonal replacement.
Right.
But he got discharged
Right.
eventually.
No, but what his family must have gone through,
His
his
family
mother
were
especially,
gone
must have
through-
been with him
Yeah,
24/7.
of course,
And
his family went
I
through.
think in such times, caregiving in itself is a completely different
It's
level.
everybody has to just sacrifice everything,
Yeah,
and some of these
yeah.
patients are not well to do. They don't have the means to hire a physiotherapist or
Yeah.
a speech therapist, and
Yeah.
it's the mother and the father that's all enrolled into one and just dedicatedly doing things for their child, doing
Yeah.
exercises, doing whatever they know is best. They're not formally trained,
Yeah.
but they're just doing whatever they can. And then every year he would come back
Yeah.
for a follow-up
Okay.
to the hospital, and he was shaking a little less each year,
Okay.
and he was more aware. And again, luckily, he had still regained his
Memory?
intelligence and
Yeah.
his memory.
Okay.
And he would speak with a little bit of a slur, but he would
But
be
he
able to
would.
communicate.
Right. Was he
And
continuing with his studies?
he was continuing with his studies.
Okay.
They gave him a special writer in his school to be able
Okay.
to
To
write
be
his
able to
exam
write.
because his hand was still shaking quite a
Right.
bit. Because he was on supplements of steroids, he had developed what is called as avascular necrosis of the hip, and
Oh.
he required a hip replacement at a very young age in life. And because of the side effects of certain other medications, he required his several of his teeth to be replaced because the enamel was wearing out. But he never gave up. He went through so much, but he continued studying, and he continued educating himself. He finished school uh, bedbound. He gave his
So
ICSE
inspiring.
exams.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
So
And
inspiring, my
it
God.
was just fascinating. And then I, somewhere along the road, I left
Hmm.
Vellore
Right.
to train abroad, etc. And then for 3-4 years, we didn't have
Contact.
any contact.
Hmm.
And he's from somewhere he got hold of my email, and then he wrote to me
Oh,
and saying that
lovely.
hi, and he wrote a really beautiful nice poem and saying, I think of you every day, and thanks to you. I didn't have any role to play in his overall outcome. I mean, I was a resident, I was part of the team, but he did really well. He was walking independently, and then he told me he's completed his MA
Wow.
in English literature. And
Brilliant.
and then he said, I'm now doing my PhD. And the first question you ask anybody,
Yeah. What is the subject you're doing it in? Yeah.
what when anybody
What is
tells
the
you what
topic?
they're doing their PhD, and you
Yeah.
ask them what are you doing it in, and
Yeah.
he told me I'm doing it in fairy tales.
Oh, wow.
And it's an actual thing. He was, I mean, in some
So
sense,
beautiful. Yeah.
writing his own fairy tale, and he made a really, and then he stayed in touch with me, and then again, a couple of years later, we lost touch again,
Hmm.
and then out of the blue, I get a call from his brother saying that, sorry to inform you, but my brother is no more.
What no, as in what happened? What happened?
He said
Suddenly no more?
he fell off the 3rd floor of the building and died. I didn't ask any questions. How, what? I just told him I was deeply sorry to hear about this. But in some sense, he'd written his own fairy tale. The entire team was so devastated by this, and we were quite sad. But we continued to toil over him day in and day out. And they say, bearing someone else's cross, you must be willing to be crushed by its own weight. And that's what we literally did. We were just at it. We decided we're not going to give up with this guy. He's such a phenomenal guy. And for some strange reason, I've seen many kids with this particular tumor, and I don't think that observation has been made. They are just brilliant. I've seen few other children who are exceptionally intelligent with their IQ. I don't know whether it's an actual soul thing that this tumor has. Is it because it's seen in two different age groups? It's seen in very young children, and it's also seen in an elderly population. So I don't know if there's some, because a karmic connection or a spiritual thing, because it's exactly where the seat of the soul is. It's at the hypothalamus. So I don't know. I mean, these are all speculations, but this is what we did for him.